Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride!
Off and on in hour number 2 after further review here on a Friday presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar. Musso in for Moscona, Taylor Sharp, Paul O'Neill along for the ride, and we're happy to have you along for the ride here as well as we begin hour 2 of what has been a jam-packed show. Still have to get into a little bit of talk about Sam Levitt. We'll do that in the next segment. He was given a bit of an honor earlier this week, so we'll touch on that as well. Get some updates, obviously, from the Combine as we go forth. Saints and LSU guys, 3 LSU guys in action up there in Indy. And we still have plenty more LSU baseball to talk about as well. They are heading to the top of the 9th at the box. Northeastern added an additional run in the 8th. So they now lead Grambling 4-1. Northeastern is 3 outs away from their first win of the season. LSU will see the Huskies on Saturday. Okay, as we get in here to hour 2, I want to lead off with the Saints. The New Orleans Saints have 2 months. It's February 27th, call it 2 months, to make a decision about a former first-round pick on their current roster, and that is Bryan Bresee. That decision, pick up the 5th-year option or don't pick up the 5th-year option. Mickey Loomis, when he met with reporters at the Senior Bowl last month, was asked, as part of a litany of questions, was asked about Bryan Bresee's 5th-year option and if they'd already made a decision on that.
We'll get to that. We haven't, again, we just, we're early in the process here, and timing's a little different this year because of the number of people we have in this game, but we'll get to that soon.
Understandable. The Saints did have damn near their entire coaching staff at the Senior Bowl. But it's okay, Mickey. I can answer that question for you. The answer is no. You flatly, no, you do not pick up Bryan Bresee's 5th-year option. And there's reason why. Cost, performance, all of those things. Let's kind of take them one by one. Bryan Bresee, when he was drafted out of Clemson in first round by the New Orleans Saints, that was a pick that I think a lot of people endorsed and liked. And you know what? He got off to a pretty good start in his rookie year. It wasn't great from a run defense perspective, but, he's acclimating to the NFL, the speed of the game, all of those things. Where he did excel was pass rush. As a rookie, 4.5 sacks and 7 TFLs for Bryan Bresee as a rookie. And it's like, okay, now can he take the next step in his game year 1 to year 2? Well, in the pass rush, he did, but the run game still lacked behind for a guy like Bresee. But he ended up with 7.5 sacks in his second season in the NFL, another 7 TFLs. You're going into year 3, new system, Brandon Staley comes in, and it did not go well for Bryan Bresee. Just 2.5 sacks, and that had been the best part of his game. And the run defense continued to lack. As a matter of fact, Bryan Bresee, in his 3 seasons in the NFL, has graded out a 28.8 in run defense per PFF. That ranks him 173rd out of 179 defensive tackles. He is a one-dimensional player at this point in his career. And that stinks. It really does. Because, again, I think that was a pick that was largely endorsed. I thought it was going to work out great. And it just hasn't. He has turned into a rotational piece at defensive tackle. And not just a rotational piece among veterans. I mean, you've got Devon Godchaux and Nathan Shepard, who are both in their early and mid-30s. That's who he's rotating with. Can't beat those guys out a little bit, earn those starts. The durability has been there for a guy like Bresee, and that's very encouraging. He played all 17 games his first 2 years, only 15 this past season. But I think it's fair to wonder and look at this and ask yourself, okay, the run defense that has not come along the way you had hoped, now in a new system in Brandon Staley's defense, you even saw the sack numbers drop. Is he just not a fit for what the current regime at the New Orleans Saints want to do? That's the on-field performance part, and you can't ignore that. Then there's the cost. I want to illustrate it this way. Bryan Bresee's rookie deal. His rookie deal. 4 years, $12.6 million. Standard rookie deal. If the Saints were to pick up Bryan Bresee's fifth-year option, they would owe him a guaranteed $12.9 million. Almost $13 million. They would owe him more than his entire rookie contract for one season. That is, you cannot justify that for a rotational, one-dimensional player like he has become. To pay him and guarantee him $13 million, there is no chance. That would be an indefensible move. Now, I think you look at history here for the New Orleans Saints, at least recent, and you see them starting to decline more fifth-year options on their guys because it's becoming more expensive. It is the fifth-year option is calculated off of an average of salaries at that position. All the way up to, I think it's like the top 25 salaries or so of at that position. You average it out, and that's how you get it. So with the market continuing to be reset and reset and reset, those averages go up. Ross Jackson, another great piece up at LouisianaSports.net involving this, takes a look back. And you have seen the Saints, since Marcus Davenport in 2018, when they exercised his fifth-year option, they have had 4 chances to exercise fifth-year options on 4 other players. They have done it one time. It was Chris Olave this past offseason. They did not exercise Cesar Ruiz's option, although they ended up extending him, which that was a miscalculation in and of itself. See just about any other conversation we've had this season about Cesar Ruiz and his play. He ranks amongst guards in the NFL like Bryan Bresee ranks amongst defensive tackles. Anyway, they did not exercise Peyton Turner. Thank the Lord. He was off to free agency. They did not exercise Trevor Penning this offseason, and he was, of course, traded at the deadline. Chris Olave they did, and he's still there. Everything's getting more expensive, and you cannot justify for a one-dimensional rotational player like Bryan Bresee paying him almost $13 million more than his rookie deal. I would expect them to decline that option, and then you see what you want to do there. Because I've got news for you. If you want him to hit free agency, that's fine. If you want him to test free agency, there's not a lot of market out there, and you sign him back as a rotational piece on a salary that makes sense for that role, okay. There are things he can bring. We've talked about the pass rush. But I'm going to tell you, defensive tackle is fast becoming a position of need for the New Orleans Saints. We mentioned Godshaw, we mentioned Shepard. They are under contract for this season, and then they hit free agency, and they are aging veterans. You still don't know what you have in Vernon Broughton because of the injury. You didn't get to see him this season. Maybe you hit there. And maybe you start to see some of that this season for the New Orleans Saints, and you build that position around him. But make no mistake, over the course of the next few off seasons, given what you're going to lose in free agency, potentially in aging veterans, this is a spot that the New Orleans Saints have got to address, whether it's in the draft, the next 2 drafts, or in free agency. You have to be strong in the trenches. You feel pretty good about what you have out at the edge. Man, you hit well with Chase Young, so it seems. Carl Granderson is a nice complementary piece. Would you like another, solid stud guy opposite Chase Young? Sure. We'll see what they do with Cam Jordan, but it certainly seems like he's should come back on a 1-year deal for the New Orleans Saints. But you're going to decline this option, or at least let me say, you should decline this option with Bryan Bresee. And that's going to raise more question marks for that position going forward in the future of the New Orleans Saints. As for Bresee, this is going to be a huge year for him. It's a contract year, and as I said, we'll know by May 1st. You got 2 months. May 1st is the deadline for these options. And he's either going to know he's going into a year where, man, you're playing for a contract either with the New Orleans Saints or with someone else. And you're going to need to make a sizable jump in a system that you just weren't really featured in a season ago. But one thing's for certain. You cannot justify picking up a fifth-year option for Bryan Bresee at that price, given the level of production that he has put forth, not for a former first-round pick. All right. It's after further review here on a Friday, sending you off into your weekend. Presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar. Scone will be back on Monday, ready to talk and recap everything that happened for this busy weekend. But for now, we're going to grab a break. We'll come back on the other side. Sam Levitt. He's being talked about with the nation's elite. We'll tell you about it next here on AFR.
After further review with Matt Moscona, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar.
Rolling along here after further review on Friday, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar. Musso in for Moscona. We're still a little bit away from LSU starting spring football, although Missouri started spring football today and South Carolina starts spring football on Wednesday. Why are we starting spring football so early? Missouri's baseball team played their home opener on Tuesday, and they're starting spring football practice. I don't think the weather is very good up in Como. Might be a little bit better in Columbia, South Carolina, but anyway. Is it me, or did it feel like spring practice used to start at like the end of March or the middle of March, the first week, even before in Missouri's case? Crazy. Anyway, LSU's will start later. And in that, all eyes will be on the newcomers and the transfers. And included in that is Sam Levitt. How much is he able to do? Lane Kiffin said he'll be able to throw some 7-on-7s, do some work of that nature, mobility and all that. You'll keep an eye on really kind of the stationary work and at least getting to throw and no contact. That's, I think, gives everybody a lot of hope for him being able to build rapport with the wide receivers, things of that nature early. Obviously, get some reps in the offense, in the playbook, and really be able to study and continue to rehab that Liz Frank injury. So that eases some concern there. And the reason why is because, man, while I think everyone's really excited about Husan Longstreet coming in as a former 5-star, and, he and Landon Clark are going to get the majority of reps and really see what they have there, it's safe to say your wagon is hitched to Sam Levitt here in year one of Lane Kiffin. And it makes a lot of sense why. He's the guy with the experience in college football, as well as helping lead a team to a college football playoff appearance at Arizona State. Pro Football Focus, with spring practice starting in some places, Missouri, has already begun their series of the top 10 returning players at certain positions for 2026. It started with, you guessed it, quarterbacks. Julian Sayin, no surprise, number one returning quarterback in the country at Ohio State. He was awesome a year ago, Heisman finalist, and I think really should be the front runner to win the Heisman Trophy here this season. He'll get to throw to Jeremiah Smith and those guys all again this year. Dante Moore, number 2, that should come as no surprise either. I mean, if he would have entered the draft, he was quarterback 2 right behind Fernando Mendoza and probably would have been taken by the New York Jets there with the number 2 overall pick. So that shouldn't really be a surprise that you see that. Arch Manning at 3, not a surprise. Trinidad Chambliss now at the waiver at number 4, not a surprise. I think you really, really look at those top 4 and go, makes a lot of sense. I was surprised with CJ Carr being number 5 at Notre Dame. I mean, I thought he had a nice year. He wasn't, super dynamic, but he did get to start the entire season and returning in Mike Denbrock's offense. I think it's safe to say a sizable jump, but I think seeing some of these transfers there might have been intriguing, or even a guy like Jaden Mayava who came in at number 6. I mean, what quarterbacks do in that Lincoln Riley offense, and he had a really nice season a year ago, threw for 3,700 yards. He was very, very good. Maybe a little surprised there. But then you get into the transfers. Brendan Sorsby was 7th, and then Sam Leavitt is right there at number 8. And Leavitt entered, just to give you some context, he entered the 2025 season in these rankings number 2. But, of course, the injury happened, and he was limited, and it didn't pan out for him. He only got 7 games. But in those 7 games, he scored 10 touchdowns. Also orchestrated an upset of Texas Tech, who ended up in the playoff and was awesome that day. But he falls from number 2 last year to number 8 this season. PFF notes, developed some bad gunslinger habits when he was on the field. A lot of that could have been due to the injury, trying to overcompensate for losing a lot of his mobility. And posted a 3.9% turnover-worthy play rate that was significantly higher from the season Arizona State went to the College Football Playoff, when it was just at 1.1%. It's fair to say, okay, if he is healthy, you would expect the decision-making and all of those things to improve and go back toward what it was as his redshirt freshman year in 2024, especially in Lane Kiffin's offense, which decision-making is so key, but it is a quarterback-friendly offense where they kind of know where they need to go with the football. As Lane Kiffin has said himself, it's an offense that is very easy for players to pick up in the first year. So I think it's reasonable to expect a return to the norm if Leavitt is healthy 100% and ready to go for LSU come the opener against Clemson, which all signs point to that. So you check that mark, you feel good about decision-making. Even with 7 games, even with just 7 games a season ago, his PFF grade over the last 2 seasons, 87.8, ranks 7th among all Power 4 returning quarterbacks. And even with the gunslinger and the turnover and the lack of mobility a year ago with the Liz Frank injury, he still was 8th among all quarterbacks in the nation under pressure. He graded out as 68 under pressure and was 10th among all quarterbacks in big-time throw rate. All it really takes for Sam Leavitt is get those turnovers down. And if he does that, he's a big play waiting to happen in a big play offense under Lane Kiffin. And that is very, very encouraging. And I actually like the fact that he will be limited in spring. I think that allows him to really ingrain himself in the study portion of this and learn this offense and be ready to go come fall camp, when hopefully he is able to be included in the team periods and in the contact periods and things of that nature, and really show what he can do. I think it would be great to get to a world where you limit your quarterbacks anyway in spring practice, especially in this transfer portal time when they're coming in, to where you can get the reps 7-on-7, things of that nature, but really dive headfirst into the offense. I'm intrigued to see how that goes for a guy like Sam Leavitt. And like I said, I kind of like it. I think it's going to work to his benefit, getting here when he did and being able to do that. So Sam Levitt, the number 8 returning quarterback, according to Pro Football Focus. It's some really good numbers and grades to back that up, even in limited action. If you're wondering, Darian Mensah now at Miami, he ranked 9th on this list, and Noah Fafita at Arizona 10th. Man, just what an interesting career that guy ended up having. On Jed Fish's offense, it was great, especially with Tet McMillan, and lose him, Fafita's back. It just wasn't the same after Jed Fish took the Washington job, but certainly a talented player in Noah Fafita. But Sam Levitt, number 8 there on that list for LSU and Lane Kiffin as they head into year number 1 and spring number 1 here in about a month or so out there on the Ponderosa. We'll have you covered plenty with that here on AFR. It'll be interesting also to see the access that we get this go round for spring. Obviously, Brian Kelly opened it up just more than anybody has in recent memory at LSU. Do not expect Lane Kiffin to do that. He was not want to do that at Ole Miss very much through spring, but we'll bring you what we can bring you. Again, the Tigers are about a month out from opening spring practice. Okay, we are due for a break here, but first a word from Matt.
Brought to you by South Point Volkswagen, southpointvw.com. New and certified pre-owned in Baton Rouge and online at southpointvw.com. In the market for a new vehicle, might be in the market for a new vehicle. Say it all the time. Just put Volkswagen on your list. So much of the Volkswagen brand is built around having fun. It exudes that when you go to South Point Volkswagen. They're going to work a great deal and they got the best inventory. Remember, if it's on the lot, it's online at southpointvw.com. New and certified pre-owned. Check their entire inventory online. Work out your financing online. Do it all online at southpointvw.com. Then go see them at South Point Volkswagen. Airline just north of Highland. South Point Volkswagen, what's your direction?
Show over?
Gotta do
Sounded like it was over.
I need to fix that. I keep saying that, and I actually did have to go through and fix lives today. So we had updated ones, and I didn't fix that.
But the show's not over?
The show is not over.
Right.
No. We are at the halfway mark, though. Halfway mark here on a Friday, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar, Musso in from Moscona. We'll grab a break, come back on the other side. Updates from the NFL Combine, including one player that the Saints visited with that is at a position of need that I really want them to draft now. We'll tell you about that next here on AFR.
After further review with Matt Moscona, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar.
Brought to you by Shawbills Tire and Auto Service, ShawbillsTire.com. 18 locations in South Louisiana. Find the location nearest you at ShawbillsTire.com. Bumper-to-bumper auto service and name brand tires at wholesale prices. They will always find a way to get you the best possible price for the best possible tires on the road. That's what they do at Shawbills. And when they get you in by selling you the best tires, the cheapest price possible, they're going to treat you like family, and they're going to treat you so good, you're going to keep coming back year after year after year, every time you need anything for your vehicle. Tires rotated, oil changed, check engine light on, brakes squeaking, whatever's wrong with your vehicle, bring it to Shawbills. Let them give it the once-over, and you can always schedule online, so it's convenient. ShawbillsTire.com. Find the location nearest you at ShawbillsTire.com. Shop tires online at ShawbillsTire.com. Be sure to ask about the Shawbills credit card as well, because you can save $50 off your first purchase when you use the Shawbills credit card only at Shawbills.
NFL Combine in full swing up in Indianapolis. You've had interviews with team, formal and informal. You've had a bunch of media availability from head coaches, from GMs. You're starting to see it happen from players alike, and now you're even into the drills and the workout and the testing portion that everybody really loves to nerd out about the NFL, about with the NFL Combine. Obviously, there's plenty of positions to keep an eye on with the New Orleans Saints. Taylor, if I were to ask you right now, top of your head, no prep involved in this, the top positions of need for the New Orleans Saints for the 2026 NFL Draft, what would you say?
Probably some combination of receiver, pass rusher.
Receiver, pass rusher. That's what you've heard a lot. Receiver, pass rusher. You've heard cornerback mix in there a little bit.
Yep, DB.
linebacker even. They've gotten a lot of buzz with Sonny Styles here lately. Of course, that would really factor into pass rusher as well. It doesn't look like an Arvell Reese would fall to him, but those are the ones. And for good reason. You need a second cornerback. You really kind of need a number one, depending on your take on Kool-Aid McKinstry. Receiver, definitely need that there with, Chris Olave and whatnot. But a position of need for the New Orleans Saints that's flying under the radar is tight end. Have you looked at the tight end roster for the New Orleans Saints of guys who are under contract for 2026 right now?
It's not a lot.
Not a lot. Starts with Juwan Johnson. He's got 2 years left on his deal, but he's 30 years old. He's getting up there. You drafted Maliki Matavao a year ago, saw him very sparingly, so you still have him on his rookie deal. That's about it. Taysom Hill is a free agent, and his NFL future is very much up in the air. We can go back to the end of last season and his final game in the Dome and how emotional he was after that. Didn't sound like a guy who was going to be back in New Orleans or maybe even not back in the NFL at all. Foster Moreau is a free agent. You could bring him back on a 1-year deal again if you want to. See what that can do. He's had his injury problems, obviously, and it's kind of hampered any type of production you could really get out of him in New Orleans, which is a bummer because we all love Foster here. New Orleans guy, went to LSU, wore 18 at LSU, all those things. But you don't have a lot of numbers there. That is a sneaky position of need for the Saints in this year's draft. Not one that you have to go out and draft early, but that's someone you could get day 2, day 3 in the draft. And there's one in particular on day 2 to keep an eye on. And the Saints are Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. When he met with reporters on Thursday at the Combine, he confirmed that he informally met with the New Orleans Saints. He also talked about Tyler Shuck and possibly playing with him and kind of raved about Shuck. He liked what he did his rookie season. He'll continue to get better and ultimately be a really successful NFL quarterback. One way to help with that is pair Eli Stowers with Tyler Shuck. Now, not going to sit here and tell you he's a complete tight end. He's not yet. He really needs to get better in the blocking phase. But this is a guy, and he admitted this in his media availability, who played quarterback before he got to college. And then they moved him to the tight end position. Started his career at New Mexico State, transferred over, spent the last 2 seasons at Vanderbilt, where he was wildly productive, especially in the receiving game, so much so that he was a Mackey Award finalist in 2024, came back and won the Mackey Award for the nation's best tight end in 2025. All told, in his 2-year career at Vanderbilt in the SEC, for 2 of the more successful Vanderbilt teams of all time, he registered 1,400 yards receiving and 9 touchdowns. Showed big playability as well, and obviously was a threat down in the red zone. Please let this happen. I know the Saints have more pressing needs. We talked about them to start this segment. But man, if the name of the game is surround Tyler Shuck with weapons, surround your young quarterback on a rookie deal with weapons, and you can get a weapon like Eli Stowers on day 2 of the draft at some point, do it. Absolutely do it. Because at worst, he's Juwan Johnson, who's a receiving threat for you out on the edge. The size is good, 6'4", 235. The playmaking ability is is just fully on display for a guy like Eli Stowers. And you don't really need to worry about the character, things of that nature. Intelligence is there. Along with the John Mackey Award, he won the William Campbell Trophy his final year at Vanderbilt. That's awarded to the player who shows the most combined excellence in academics and football. So you know he's going to be able to come in, learn a system. You've already seen him learn 2 in college. I want this to happen so bad. And you know what? Maybe I'm dreaming because, again, there's more pressing issues. But a position that's under the radar is tight end. because of what you have coming back. And you still have the offseason and free agency, and you could bulk up there. But, man, I would love a weapon like Eli Stowers for Tyler Shuck. It just depends on if the Saints see it that way and when they would go to pull the trigger on it. But even with an informal visit, it shows you they're at least thinking about it. And I think it would just be, I think it'd be a home run. I think it would be a home run for the New Orleans Saints if they could somehow end up with Stowers on day 2. One more target that we know for the Saints that confirmed a visit is Carnell Tate. And Carnell Tate is likely going to be the first wide receiver off the board, especially given the injury history of Jordan Tyson right now, and he's having to answer a lot of questions about that at the NFL Combine. You're more and more seeing Mekhi Lemon mocked to the Saints now at 8, not Carnell Tate, but that would be a huge pickup and a home run as well. That's a guy who immediately comes in and solves your need at the X position. Good size, a little bit over 200 pounds, 6'3", 6'4", in that range. Comes from a wide receiver factory at Ohio State. Had just shy of 900 yards this season while having to, split time there with a guy like Jeremiah Smith in that receiving room. Still got his. You could pair him with another Ohio State guy in Chris Olave. There's just a lot of reasons to like Carnell Tate. And when he met with the media on Thursday as well, he spoke about his visit with New Orleans.
That's a great opportunity. I think probably they may be out there looking for another offensive weapon to pair up with Chris and also to help Tyler in his career. So it'll be a great opportunity to go out there and help the Saints win.
Have you spoken with the Saints?
I did have a meeting with the Saints.
Okay, how did that go?
That meeting went great as well. We talked about my film. They critiqued me on a couple of routes. It was a great meeting.
A lot of that's going to depend on how the draft falls for New Orleans if they end up with Carnell Tate, but you can tell they're clearly interested there, as they should be. And I think the other thing is that might show you kind of where the Saints' head is at for that position. I pass rusher could be a thing, but it feels like you might be able to get that a little bit later in the draft, especially because some of the top ones are going to be off the board before you, like a David Bailey, like an Arvell Reese. How do you feel about Sonny Styles? I think he would fit actually phenomenally in Brandon Staley's defense. You saw Isaiah Stallbird rush the passer so well from a linebacker position on third down in Staley's scheme. That could easily be Sonny Styles, and he set the combine on fire, y'all. He had the fastest 40 from a linebacker. He had one of the best all-time vertical leaps, 43 inches from the linebacker position. The guy's a freak athlete. And, I mean, his unofficial relative athletic score was a 9.9 out of 10. Unofficial, but that relative athletic score, he went to Ohio State. You know the Saints would love to have him. They might have already just drafted him in their dreams. But it feels like receiver's going to be the pick. Feels like receiver's kind of going to be the pick. And if Carnell Tate falls to them, I think that'd be magnificent. For the New Orleans Saints. And if you end up with Mekhi Lemon, you're not going to shake a stick at that either, man. It certainly seems like in some of these mock drafts, and yes, a mock draft is worth about as much as the paper they're printed on. It's the old cliche. We know that. But you're seeing Lemon go as wide receiver 2 right now, which is why you're seeing him more to the Saints, with Jordan Tyson falling a little bit behind given the injury history and especially it being a soft tissue injury with the hamstring. We'll see. We'll see which direction they go, but man, Eli Stowers, I think that's my dream right now, is the Saints end up with Stowers on day 2, and he just comes in and is an incredible weapon in the red zone and all over the field for the New Orleans Saints and then rookie quarterback Tyler Shuck. It feels like a match made in heaven. Make it a formal interview, Saints. Get him for a top 30 visit or something. What are we doing? Get Eli Stowers to know. Hey, look, he already wore black and gold last year. He's got a lot of it in the closet. Get Eli Stowers to New Orleans. All right. We're going to grab a break. We'll come back on the other side. Wrap up the hour. Taylor will handle the duties with Tigers and the Pros. That's next here on AFR.
Who you want them to take
here
right
on
there?
Hour number two of After Further Review on a Friday.
I
turn the honors over to Taylor here. Tigers and the Pros.
I'll follow
my pride and get my feet.
Tigers in the pros. They still bleed purple and gold. They're just really rich now.
I wouldn't be sad about
All right,
taking
we're
that
starting
running back out of
on.
Notre Dame.
We're starting on the baseball diamond. Yesterday's spring training, Toronto Blue Jays, Miami Marlins. Former LSU infielder Cade Doty getting some action. He got a spring training invite for the Blue Jays. He got in there, got some action at third base. Went 0-for-1 at the plate.
Involving still a wine in Georgia and Ron in Indianapolis.
Marlins,
I love you.
8-7. Shout out Cade Doty getting in there, getting that spring training invite.
When the Steelers
Moving over to the hardwood, the Houston Rockets take down the Orlando Magic.
I do believe he's going to be drafted top 10
to 108. Our guy
Tari
Tari Eason got 33 minutes. A little bit of a weird stat line for Tari. So only 2 points on the night, 1 for 5 shooting, but he did grab 8 rebounds. He had 3 assists, 2 steals, and a block. So did a little bit of everything.
We do have Des in Minnesota back. Hey, Des, what happened to you, my man?
On the offensive end, on the season, Tari Eason another solid year, 11.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, and a 1.6 assists.
Luckily, that's all we heard,
Over to Philadelphia. The 76ers take down the Miami Heat, 124.
You know you're
17, and Trendon Watford 11 points off the bench.
Going to the trouble room when your answer's the question.
6
what
rebounds,
did you hear?
3 assists. He did have a block as well. And Watford on the year, just 6 points, but 3.5 rebounds per contest to go along with 2.5 assists. And finally, the Minnesota Timberwolves 94, the LA Clippers 88. This game was yesterday afternoon, and Nasri, former LSU star, 29 minutes off the bench. He had 11 points, 5 of 6 shooting. Now he was 0 for 2 from 3, but to go along with those 11 points, how about 7 rebounds, a steal, and 2 blocks for our guy Nasri. On the year, Nas actually having the best season of all the guys I just mentioned. 14.1 points per game, 6.4 rebounds, 2.5 assists per game, shooting 47% from the court for the Timberwolves. Another solid season from our guy Nasri. That is
classic every time Dez calls us.
He never fails.
No,
he never fails.
He never lets us down either.
I'm just glad we didn't almost fail his Friday.
Combine, AJ Halsey.
I heard you asking somebody what they were going to whip up.
Just took a turn
Anytime you answer a question with a question, we got a pretty good idea where there you are. Rennell in Arkansas on our new page. Rennell, new pick. Give us your NFL team and who you want to see them take in the first round of the NFL draft.
Very good. I mean, he's going to be a day 2 guy, and it feels like that's kind of going to be highway robbery when he goes in the day on day 2. You know, that kind of feels like when Grant Delpit fell.
We need help.
Like that. That's kind of, and the Browns got a steal there, and he's been a force in their secondary ever since they took him out of LSU in that 2020 draft. And it feels like AJ Halsey is kind of destined for the same thing. 4.54 unofficial at 215 pounds. That is very, very good because you know the ball skills. You saw the tackling ability from Halsey all year at LSU. Like the tape is the tape. Ready to go there and be able to test well now and show the agility and things of that nature. That's only going to improve his draft stock more and more. So congratulations to him.
But he's right though. Like
also,
they have to figure out what their offensive line is going to look like for 2026. And yes, they do need that number 1 wide receiver because I firmly believe they do not have that on their roster. But they do have a tight end.
You talk about
Harold Fannin Jr.
He's really good.
The hay is in the barn. The tape is the tape.
So you don't need a tight end.
And whoever plays quarterback, whoever Todd Monken decides to play that quarterback position, find a running game to help out your quarterback and your tight end, and a couple receivers as well. Because Jerry Jeudy, as good as he is, he's better as a number 2. Not as a number PFF 1. We're going to push the A.J. Brown, Philadelphia Eagles conversation to about 10 minutes away here on Freddie and Harry on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, and ESPN Plus. He's Harry Douglas. I'm Freddie Coleman, 888-729-3776. Who do you want your team to draft in the first round of the NFL draft that happens less than 2 months from now? One of our favorites and one of Harry's nemesis is Mardi Gras Bob from New Orleans. As a who dat fan of the Saints, Mardi Gras Bob, who do you want your Saints to take with the first round pick in a couple of months?
AJ name on the card on day 2 of the draft.
Well, gentlemen, pleasure to visit with you as the Atlanta Goonie Birds.
We're set for top of the hour break. It is final. First game of the day at the box. Northeastern, they knocked off Grambling 4-1. That's the Huskies' first win of the season. They're 1-5, and that is the record they will carry into their game Saturday afternoon against the LSU Tigers, which will be an uphill task there for sure. That's what we're going to talk about when we get back from the second half.
Mardi Gras Bob, are you typing chicken coop?
Hour
are you typing?
It sounds like a bunch of chickens
Dive back
out
into
there.
some LSU baseball.
Marty Garbaugh, are you typing? I mean, I didn't think Ty Price existed on planet Earth anymore.
As well as
it sounded like horses,
note on
maybe.
some of the
He
arms.
could have been the track.
From Dartmouth.
He could have been.
Northeastern
He could have been at the stall.
But it would not surprise me if the New Orleans Saints chose Jeremiah Love at number 8. That's exactly where I think he's going to go. There's potential of him going to Washington at number 7 as well.
Yeah, I didn't think they need a running back.
Hour number 3, and then hopefully
would you take him if you're the Giants?
Before we get out of here.
Since you already have Scatterboo. I know, but I'm just saying.
Why not?
Too much.
John Harbaugh. Why not?
Significant.
He'd be perfect, Jackson Dart. Why not at number 4?
New Orleans Saints.
That makes sense too.
That's why I want to bring it up.
Number 5. That would make a lot of sense. We got 3 things we can't wait to discuss. Number 1, which first quarterback that's out of that first round be successful. Number 2, A.J. Brown of Philadelphia.